What's up, people? What's up, people? What's up, people? Wow, I came in hot. I'm looking at the audio bar. What's up, everybody? It is your boy MM2K of the Stadia Dosage platform and PNTS network. And I'm here with your co-host of SSC Podcast. Welcome to episode 79. I am here with your co-host, Peter Cottontail. Peter, how you doing today, man?
Good, man. How are you?
Oh man, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. Didn't think so, but Stadia just came out of nowhere and just like hit us with a soccer punch of news. So we're gonna talk about it.
No news.
Exactly. And then this ain't even supposed to be the Twos blog at that. The Twos is still supposed to be coming later, from what I understand. So unless this was it, who knows? We'll see. But how you doing, man? Great.
Yeah, I'm good. Already went to work today. Probably gonna order some food later. So wow, that sounded like a good day.
Can't go wrong with some food. Can't go wrong with grub, man. Can't go wrong. And now to introduce to you our special guest, my spiritual advisor, all things Stadia. Yes, that guy, Mr. Clive Linden. Clive, how are you doing today, sir?
Konbanwa, arigato gozaimasu. I'm good, sir. I am good, and great to be back on the show again today. Looking forward to it.
Yes, tweet it out. Clive is here, but don't fret. He's not going to be a permanent guest. We tried poaching him. We tried doing everything that we could. I had Pete come up to him with $1 million bag, and he said,
the brown paper bag.
Yeah.
Unmarked notes.
With a half-bitten tuna sandwich in it and a couple dollars in it. He wouldn't take it. He wouldn't bite. All right. So with that said, thank you again. Again, this is episode 79 of SSC Podcast. Do us a huge favor while you're here. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. And rock those bells for notifications, please, so you know when we are going live with good content like this. Today we're going to talk about 3 things in particular, but we got an array of things that we're going to address on the way. First and foremost, we want to talk about the 60 frames per second talk and the whole Stadia business stuff. There's been a lot of buzz in the community about, oh man, we'll never see 60 frames per second again. Oh my, or I don't see any games, so Stadia is about to die. We hear a lot of that. And what I wanted to do is bring one of the resident experts, something that we use the term SME over here in the States, subject matter expert, Clive Valentin. He done this stuff for a living. He's very familiar with it, did a hell of a show on Monday, so we brought him here to talk about that. Me and Pete are going to follow up on his knowledge of this stuff. So we're going to talk about the business stuff and talk about the interesting conversation that he had with Rock about the 60 frames per second piece of this yesterday. If you didn't catch that show, you're definitely going to want to catch that after this. And then we're going to also talk about the new games that were a surprise today. World War Z and Fire Commander, I think it is. One game that's already been acclaimed, another one that looks pretty damn good. So we're going to talk about that coming to the Stadia platform. And then lastly, there was a blog on features. So we're going to talk about that as well. I want to remind people real quick. Let me show you something. Shameless. Oh, that's not it. Well, what I wanted to show you was the PNTS Network website, but instead you got to see the board for the show. We want to remind people that the Division 2 clan has been closed online. I didn't update the status on the website yet, but it is closed. So what you're going to want to do definitely is, if you're interested in joining, you got to talk to our captains like Tommy Rocks, Twisted Barber, whoever else is in here. Just announce yourself. I see Twisted in the house. Announce yourself if you're a captain of or a lieutenant of the clan, so people know to reach out to you so they can sign up if they want to. Also, we have a Destiny 2 clan that's going to be head up by our good friend Daryl Smog Jr. So don't forget about that, my friends. Definitely check that out. You can speak to Daryl Smog. You can reach out to myself. We're looking to make that live as soon as possible. Here, I think I fixed the problem. There we go. All right. PNTS Network website. Let's go here. Definitely check it out. Come to PNTS Plus, Old Dirty Blasters. You can ignore the ad. They come right here, and you'll see all of our crossplay links. All right. And with that said, let's now talk about what people have been gaming on. Pete, what have you been gaming on since last episode?
Everything, as always. So as you all probably know, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot just hit Stadia, and I'm a big Dragon Ball Z nerd. So I've been playing that. I've been playing Witcher 3 on my PC because, yes, other platforms do exist. So I've been playing on that. What else have I been playing? Dude, I have so many games I've not been keeping up very well. Oh, I also did start a playthrough of I've been playing Batman still through the AT&T deal. I started another playthrough of Horizon Zero Dawn on PC because I also love that game. So overall, I've been playing quite a few games, but Witcher is my focus for right now, and so is Dragon Ball Z Kakarot.
Right, cool stuff. Clive, what have you been able to indulge in since the last time we enticed you to come and join us? What have you been playing?
Yeah, I'm continuing with Far Cry 6. Just drop in there, do a couple of missions, move on, drop out. And I fired up Watch Dogs Legion for the first time. I don't know why I never got around to playing it earlier. I guess because we didn't have Ubisoft Plus when it first came out in Europe. So I kind of thought, I'll play that when Ubisoft Plus comes out. But the time Ubisoft Plus came out, we had a ton of other games which have sort of taken over. So and I was interested to go back to it because obviously, I lived in the city, and I know, I was just kind of curious. Lord Kensal did a stream of it yesterday, and the first part of it was like a taxi driver. It was like, oh yeah, just down there's this lovely Japanese restaurant round the corner. I went there a couple of weeks ago with my girlfriend. That's really nice. And then just up that street there, you'll find this lovely pub with So it was quite fun driving around and just recognizing all the bits that I'd sort of been to very recently and stuff like that. So those are the two main games this week.
think a lot of people have overlooked that game. When I played it on my first look, it was very solid. So definitely, yeah, myself included. I'm glad you mentioned that game, Clive. I got to give that game a look again.
It feels, you know, oddly enough, it feels more sort of, you know, dare I say it, than some of the more tight, I would say, than, I mean, it's an Ubisoft game.
Yeah.
You know, you meet people, you go off and do side missions, you know, you mark the map, you go to the point on the map, you know, all those kind of things which we kind of, you know, love or hate, depending on what it is with Ubisoft. But, you know, there's something quite nice and familiar about it. But I quite like the sort of the puzzly element in Watch Dogs Legion. You kind of work out, okay, how do I get into that room or whatever it is and stuff like that, as well as the sort of the combat. And then just the idea of recruiting people is sort of quite a cool idea, and it works quite well. So I think it's quite a tight game in that regard.
Yeah. I mean, I know we get a lot of flack. I don't even understand how that's possible, but I know we get a lot of flack about, oh, you guys lean a lot on Ubisoft. I mean, as a new platform, I wouldn't want really anybody else except maybe EA to have my back. You know what I mean? To help us.
People underestimate the importance. That people go, it's lucky. You know, Stadia's lucky.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for Ubisoft, you know, they're lucky. There's no luck about it.
Yeah.
Like if you're launching a platform, you need to form strategic relationships with a big publisher.
Yes.
And in this case, it happens to be Ubisoft. That wasn't luck. Ubisoft aren't keeping, you know, Stadia alive. Stadia are keeping Stadia alive because they strategically partnered very closely, worked with before, you know, Stadia as a name probably even exists, you know, worked on, you know, Project Stream or whatever it was. You know, worked with Ubisoft on Assassin's Odyssey as the sort of the pilot for this, built that relationship early on. And that was all, you know, that all has to have been strategically thought out. You know, not like we'll just launch a platform with no deep strategic relationship.
Exactly.
Because that would make sense. So it kind of annoys me slightly when people just go, oh, it's lucky Ubisoft are around, or it's just, you know, there's no luck about it. It's like it's good work on stage, you know, like give them laurels where it's deserved. That is an absolutely, I'm sure they would have loved to have more key relationships, and they sort of had, you know, short-term key relationships by, you know, doing a 5-game deal with EA or you know, the deals they did with Take-Two, and you know, we've got the stuff coming from Sega and stuff like that, and Capcom. But the Ubisoft one was much more a strategic alliance to make sure that if you're launching a platform, you've got, you know, some big publisher is sort of on board with everything you're doing. And obviously it's, you know, Ubisoft saw it as beneficial as well, because obviously they want to be on every platform, and they obviously see the potential of cloud, and they're not, you know, some publishers are a bit more, well, we'll wait and see. Let's not commit ourselves. And others like Ubisoft are going, no, we'll come in with it. This is great. So yeah, it's not luck.
It reminds me, Clive and Pete, of, I mean, they make it sound like Stadia was just walking around aimlessly in Times Square with partnership contracts in hand, and they bumped into an Ubisoft rep who accidentally signed the contract. And you know what I'm saying? It's oops. Well, now I'm committed. Yeah. Like, it doesn't work like that. Yeah. And that's why we have you on here, Clive, to help clarify stuff like this, man. Because I mean, Pete and I, we get agitated, right? And we'll start going, rah, 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 but we always need the spiritual advisor to come in and just soothe us all over with all the facts and good stuff. So
level-headedness with the problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Because it can, like you said, Clive, it can get frustrating at times.
Yeah. Well, tell me about you know, the amount of times I type out a response in Reddit and then just delete it because I just haven't got the time, the breath, or the day. But there's just. I kind of very quickly, while it's on my chest, just get it off here. what really annoys me about Reddit is somebody will make an assumption, right? Not based on nothing.
Yep.
They will make an assumption and they'll say it as a statement.
Yes.
And then for the next 30, 40, 50 comments are commenting on that assumption as if it's fact.
Yep.
And you're just reading through it and they go, yeah, well, it's probably because of that. Well, yeah, well, clearly that's because of that. And you just think this all started from a baseless statement, you know, a baseless assumption. It was actually about grace.
Okay. Wow.
And it all started on like, not factual or anything like that, just an assumption. But then that assumption almost automatically becomes deemed a fact.
Yeah.
And the people go in at the level as though they're arguing over a factual point. And as I say, you spend reams and reams of comments all based on this tenuous assumption. And you just think, what a waste of effort. Because somebody could just come along and go, actually, no, that's wrong.
Yeah,
and then all that conversation is wasted. It's all wasted.
Well,
it's all a waste of breath.
And another thing too.
Anyway,
I see that a lot, Clive and Pete, on like. Shout out to Stadia Rev. He highlighted something today that I thought was funny and interesting. And don't worry, folks, we're gonna get to the topic soon. But this is all stuff that has to be talked about because there are new people here. Like we just introduced a new guy to the community. He said he didn't even know. He said I've been playing on Stadia for a while, and I wonder has there been a community built yet around this? And we're like, yeah,
what?
You know?
Yeah,
exactly.
It always surprises me when I see. He's not the only. Like recently, there was another guy going, "Oh, I stream Stadia. Does anybody else?"
Yes.
And you just think, are you?
Yes.
Are you not looking?
Yeah.
Or are we not reaching through? I say not we, not the royal we. I'm saying the Stadia community. You know, like Reddit's got 100,000 users, and it's sort of months ago I went on there and said, you know, does anybody watch Stadia content? And it was, you know, loads of people didn't. And it's just like it is weird, and that's what made me realize that our community, as we call it, when we say the community, perhaps the YouTube and Twitter community, exactly, is actually quite small. But we think we're more important than we are, but it's actually very, very tiny compared, even say, to the Reddit community, who always seem to me out of touch.
Yeah.
You know, that you recognize the people who are in the Twitter and the YouTube community. You see them on there, and they tend to be a bit more in touch. But you just get like people post stuff, and it's fine. People should post stuff if it's new to them. But you know, I kind of look at it and go, yeah, like we knew that 2 days ago. But that, you know, and that's on me. That's no disrespect to them. Like I can't criticize somebody for finding out information, you know, 2 days later, 3 days later. But it's just interesting when you read that and you just think, you're not plugged into the same things. I say that we are, you know, the people like you and I and the people who watch this show and stuff like that. It's strange. It's weird. So there is definitely areas where the YouTube community, especially of Stadia, isn't breaking through. And as I say, I did a survey, like a mini sort of anecdotal survey on Reddit, and that, you know, that was the sort of the overwhelming kind of response was no, don't watch anybody on YouTube.
Yep. Absolutely.
Interesting.
So we had an interaction earlier today where somebody and I know the guy. He's a big fan of a good friend of mine's, Randolph Thor. Those of you that follow Xbox News should know who Randolph Thor is. He was the first gamer to 1 million. I think the man with 1 million. Phil Spencer met him at E3 and gave him a special award and stuff like that. We've had him on a couple of podcasts and so forth. But he's a big fan of Randolph Thor's, and he comments a lot on a lot of his material and stuff like that. And he's kind of built like a following based off of his following Randolph Thor. So when that happened, you know, he gets a lot of people worked up about things that Xbox don't have. So they were looking at the NIS America games that Xbox has. I mean, that Stadia has that Xbox don't have. And he said, why don't they have Why doesn't Xbox have these games? And the things that you see in that chat make your eyes roll in the back of your head, but you would expect it from them. Because those are Xbox people that follow IGN and stuff, you know, where their meat and potato of their sources come from there. But to what Clive and I and Pete bring up often is that these are supposed to be people that are in tune with Stadia. And when you see that in a Reddit, it just, you know, it is what it is. But with that said, with no further ado, what have I been playing? I've played Division. I've been trying not to have Tommy Rocks throw me out of my own clan by not playing that much in the Division. We wanted to do a raid for this weekend's charity. We're not up to par yet, so we're gonna figure out something. Don't fret. However, I've been playing a lot of Division. That's all I've really been able to get in and do. All right, folks. With no further ado, let's get into these damn topics. All right. Topic number 1. I want to talk about the business side of it. The 60 frames per second and the Stadia business stuff. The stuff to where there is angst. There's been a lot of discussion in the community about it. But we're going to try to tackle it with some fact-based stuff right now for you. Okay. So let's do this first addressing, so Clive, bring me and Pete up to speed. Clive will bring us up to speed, and then Pete, I would like for you to follow up and give your thoughts before I even say another word. But you had a conversation with Rock on his show yesterday, right? So yes. Can you kind of like let us help us understand what it was that you guys were talking about in relation to 60 frames per second, and what it was that was revealed for those that are concerned about the state of 60 frames per second on Stadia?
Yeah, so I'd had some thoughts about the 60 frames per second issue and a 30 frames per second issue.
Yep.
And I've talked about some of the artistic choices that clearly, you know, some developers, publishers have made given that choice. And then also there was a tweet from the developer of the Falconeer a while ago. And he said, you know, the thing with Stadia is, you know, the frames per second is certainly not an issue. In fact, it is an issue because you have to cap them, because otherwise they run riot. They go off the scale. So when you're programming the game, he was basically saying you need to put a sort of a cap on it, because it'll run at 120, 240 frames per second if you let it. So, you know, I'm not a developer or coder, as you can tell, but basically, I'm paraphrasing what he's saying, so you have to actually sort of put in these controls to stop it ramping up too much. And obviously it's going to have potentially gets too high, it has a detrimental effect on other things anyway. Yep. So I always kind of thought that was interesting, and it went to support this idea that, you know, the Stadia, underlying Stadia tech is not, you know, is perfectly capable of delivering everything they said it's meant to be able to deliver. And then, so that was always in my mind. But then Rock brought up this, he'd been talking to a developer who is, developing games or developed games for Stadia. Okay. So this is not this is not Billy down the pub, Dave down the pub.
Yeah.
Well, it might be Dave down the pub, but it's Dave down the pub on his break from the development house who are making games for Stadia. Put it that way. And he asked him about the whole frames per second thing. And what he said is that he sort of reiterated that notion that it takes, Stadia are quite disciplined. Or, you know, this may sound a bit weird, and you may say, well, you know, they don't have enough, you know, they're not stern enough in terms of making sure people deliver at 60 frames per second. But what they are disciplined at, apparently, according to this developer developing for Stadia, in order to pass the QA, you know, the testing, for Stadia, to get it sort of, you know, approved by Stadia, the frames per second must be consistent, as you know, or reach a high level of consistency. And it takes time, according to this developer, as I understand it, to tweak every bit. There's always a bit in a game for whatever platform you're using, whatever where the drain on the resources will mean that there's a drop in frames per second, and that can be a big drop or a small drop depending on, I guess, how it's coded. And it takes time to go to those, I guess, the bottlenecks where that's happening, and find more economic uses of resources to make it work and be smoother, and so that you kind of minimize those frame rate drops. And that takes time. And when they're under pressure to deliver a game day and date, and we know that for a lot of games that are day and date, they are still effectively probably ports of a main platform, whether it's the PC or a different platform. And so given that, it's much easier to make a choice to say, look, we can consistently hit 30 frames per second. That's like easy. It's lazy. It's not lazy, but given the time frame that we have, in order to hit the Stadia quality threshold of not having a vast rapid change in the frames per second, having consistent frames per second, it is easier for us just to say, okay, we'll cap it at 30, get the game out on time, at the same time as everything else. So that is often, it's that time limit, the time required to kind of make the frames per second consistent and the time in order to get the game out day and date and on time with everything else. So that was the sort of the message that Rock seemed to get back from this developer who's developing games for Stadia, told him, and it is often that becomes the decision. And maybe what backs that up is what's happened to Valhalla.
Yeah. Yep.
That they had to get that out day and date with all the other platforms. They went creatively. Okay, we'll have it at 4K because it's a walk around game. It's not, it's a sort of open world map game, so you want nice visuals. So given that artistic choice and the time pressures, we'll know that we can consistently hit 30 frames per second at every moment of that game, rather than try for 60 frames and then have some bits which are 40 and some bits are 50 and some at 60. We'll just cap it at the 30, make it easy, put it at 4K, get it out on time. And then if we have time or the opportunity, we can go back and refine those areas where there were dips, so that we can deliver a 60 frames per second version and be more consistent. Now, I don't know that's what happened with Valhalla, but given what the developer of the Falconeer said, that actually, the frames per second are he was saying they're almost uncontrollable if you don't put in code to kind of control them. So we know that also means that they can go up and down. But what he's saying is, we know therefore that you can get the frames per second out. But just basically, when you listen to what this other developer said, it just takes time to make sure that those frames per second are consistent. And the reason you have to do that is because Stadia apparently are very strict on having a consistent frames per second, according to this developer. And then you look at what happened to Valhalla, you think, well, maybe what they're saying kind of makes sense, or is backed up by the fact that Valhalla got that 60 frames per second improvement, albeit at 1080, but it got that improvement.
And it's a gorgeous mode too. I love it.
So, anyway, so that was the gist of it. So it was just interesting to hear from a developer, not just one developer, when you factor in what the developer of the Falconeer said about the, having to put a special sort of code in to cap the frames per second. Slow it down. Yeah.
Yep. Pete, what are your thoughts on all that, man? Because I know you're like me, and Storm. We want our 60 frames per second, right? And if we don't get it on Stadia, that's fine. Like me and you are particularly like this. Like, if we don't get it on Stadia, it's fine. We'll go elsewhere and play it and just come back to Stadia when they do have it. But what are your thoughts on what Clive just shared from Rock Show?
So yeah, that's why I'm not. Once again, Clive, you like nailed it. So I'm like kind of speechless. But once again, I'm the same way. Like, I don't think people really understand everything that's going on behind closed doors at all. They don't understand what discussions are being held. They don't understand that maybe this is just what the requirements are to keep it running. And like personally, I see it as Stadia basically doing, if this makes any sense, like live stress testing. Like some games are 30 FPS, some games are 60, but the games that are running at 30 FPS aren't just 1080p, and they seem to be at a higher quality fidelity wise. And honestly, I don't care if a game is 30 FPS because I've been doing it for decades now at this point. I put up with it all the way up until I got a PC because I was never playing at 30 FPS. After my PS4 went out, I had my PC and then I started experiencing it. So to me, it doesn't really matter. And like, if a game is 60 FPS, awesome. But if not, like, I don't really care because I don't play a game for frames or fidelity, especially if it's not something that's extremely fast paced that I feel like doesn't need 60 FPS, like Far Cry 6, for example. Played all the way through it and it's 30 FPS. I didn't care. I played the game just fine. Um, so really that's all I have to say. I don't really necessarily care, and I know that it likely is because, like you said, Stadia has strict requirements, and I think people are just irritated because they don't know those requirements aren't out in the open, so they don't know what's going on.
Yep.
In terms of like what's out in the open and what's not.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I'm a little bit different. I kind of need 60 frames per second, and not just because it's a preference. It is a preference, but I need it because I'm like, I have like the worst set of eyeballs on this side of the Northeast Atlantic. And for me, sitting in front of computers for decades, like literally my eyes dry out if, things ain't smooth on the screen or whatever. Like even my mouse can bother me if it's not moving at a smooth frame rate. So I need 60 frames per second or a stable 50, you know what I'm saying? I can do like a stable 50. But then there's the PlayStation games, oddly. Like they got a way of developing a smooth 30, and it's fine with me. And I can play PlayStation exclusive games that are, because they work some type of magic. So if Stadia gets to that type of whatever technology or methodology that they're using there, great, fine, fantastic. But with that said, I get to where if the game is in 60 for a group of people, it's a problem. But we're talking about the solution to the problem. And even I put out a video that said, Batman Arkham shows that Stadia is being duped by their developers. And that still may be some of the case, or maybe, some of the cases that are out there. But it was very enlightening to hear that conversation with you and Rock Clive. And I think it shed a light on a lot of stuff, even for me, to where, and I forgot about this. There are those, not only what you described about, the certain parameters that have to be met, but if we go back to the keynote where they told you got to develop, and it's got to be equal on each screen. There's like a PC module or a TV module, a PC module, and a tablet and phone module, and you got to get the same balanced performance on all three of those modules, or you're going to have a problem. And moving your game in between each of those modules to see how they perform could be a problem. So I can see where, and I did have inside, this is new news, but I did have an inside person tell me that devs last year were complaining about that. And because what sparked my conversation with this person behind the scenes, Clive and Pete, was Football Manager. The people that are behind Football Manager, that was a complaint of theirs, that they didn't like developing on Stadia because it was complicated for them in that realm. Now, the tools have gotten so much easier. We've heard from our good friend John Scar, who had the interview with the individuals from Death Carnival. and they went over all this stuff, and he said, look, I get it at the beginning where the tool sets maybe have been atrocious, but they're a lot better now, so you can't use those same excuses now. But
and they've introduced new tools that they announced.
That's what I was starting to notice.
Yeah, especially on the Q&A side, getting the game tested and approved.
So,
which is what is the feedback is it's quite difficult that from what what we've heard anecdotally. That's the difficult bit.
Absolutely. So I think that it makes logical. This is a new platform. There are things there's going to be challenges with a new platform on the way that it's developed for. We got to understand the business. I had an interesting engagement on this. I guess this is a perfect segue to the business part of this discussion. But I had a great conversation last night with somebody who just said, "You're so calm about this. Like, why are you calm? Like it's over. The imps are falling. Don't you smell the sweat off the imps falling from the sky?" And I'm like, "No, this is a law. They did a reboot in February, and it takes time for these things to develop. And if you don't believe me, go back in the hot tub time machine and go get you an OG Xbox back in early 2000. It takes time." And Xbox was willing, dude, they were willing to sell their firstborn to get exclusives, to get these games, and it just wasn't happening because the relationships had to be established. We had Gopher on here the other Topher, the guy behind the fake Star Wars thing. He's the developer. He said in the early Xbox Live days, even with not as many multiplayer games out there, was a challenge getting saturation in homes with Xbox. This stuff takes time. But any other thoughts on that before Pete? I know you wanted to say something. Any thoughts on that before we move on to the business side of it?
Not in particular. No. Yeah. Not in particular. No.
I just when people go ahead, Clive.
Yeah. So I just add. Look. So some people have sort of said, say nobody knows anything, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes they'll say that to me, well, you don't really know, do you? and you know what? No, I don't.
Yep.
Right. So I think everything I say or everything, and I've said this before, take everything anybody says, whether it's me or not, with a slight pinch of salt.
Exactly.
But equally, ask yourself, what qualifications, how do they qualify it? What is their thinking behind it? And then, as I say, it's all speculation, but some speculation is more fact-based or research than other speculation.
Yes.
So always ask, where's the case?
Yeah.
When people constantly tweet me with like news items. I saw a person tweet me, and I think it was about cloud, it was about Microsoft doing really well in cloud, gaming, right? But I think they'd read it as doing really well in cloud gaming, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of looked and followed up and did, because I was curious, why are you sending it to me? And I was curious. And then I saw these announcements, and these were in the same way we had the Alphabet announcements yesterday, quarterly results. Yeah. And Microsoft had that. And Microsoft basically announced they were doing really well in cloud.
Mm-hmm.
And full stop, comma, and they were doing really well in gaming.
Yep.
But this guy tweeted out, they're doing really well in cloud, gaming. And I just said, have you actually read your tweet? There's a comma there. Now, this sounds pedantic, but the point is, it's Google are doing really well in cloud. Yeah?
Yeah.
In fact, I saw a thing in the Telegraph or the Financial Times here saying both Microsoft and Google, publish really good cloud results. But it was just that interesting. It's like that, just a sort of anecdotal example where somebody had, and I don't know whether they had or not, but to me, I thought it looks like you're trying to say they're doing really well in cloud gaming.
Yeah.
But actually, very clearly there's a comma there. in the quote that you've sent me, what they're talking about, they're doing really, yes, Microsoft are doing really well in gaming.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. Xbox
Absolutely,
is
yeah.
on fire. Yeah. Doing really well in gaming. And it's also just as Google is doing really well in cloud, but they're two separate things. And somehow, in the rush to sort of get me included in a tweet or something, they'd sort of combine them into sort of cloud gaming. And I just thought, no. And it's just that, like, you just got to read the article. Yeah. And then when I read an article, I then go off and look for more stuff that backs that up. And that's how I kind of come up with my assumptions or my speculations. So no, so I hold my hand up. I don't know. I'm not in the room, but what I can do is look at the evidence there is, and base it on my experience of, media or the games industry, and then sort of put together an assumption or speculation based on all of that. So absolutely, for those that, will quite correctly say nobody really knows what's going on. Absolutely, because none of us are in the room.
Exactly.
But with a bit of research, you can sort of read the runes, as it were, and get a sense if you do your research.
And you got to know how this stuff works. You do. I mean, because people kind of put themselves in a panic by not understanding the fundamentals. You got to understand this business.
Yeah. What gets me is that look, I get it. People on Twitter, people on Reddit, fine, whatever. People, fine. Everybody's an armchair critic. That's fine. That's what we do. Whatever. What really gets me are the journalists, the gaming journalists, who will write something, and clearly it will lack. They've all got like a short-term memory. Yeah. Right. Yep. Which suggests to me a certain, not all of them, but some articles you'll read and you'll just think, for instance, they'll say, Stadia is white labeling, whatever, blah, blah, blah. It looks like that's what they're doing, as though it's a surprise. Yep. Or as though that we didn't know that this is what they were trying to do. And it's just like, you've either got a short memory or you've just not done your basic research. When I did the Monday night show this week, I specifically went back to the original Phil Harrison closure of SG&E blog and went through it with a tooth comb to plot what I was about to say, to like plot a line from all the key things he said in that. And then I read some, the articles about the AT&T, and it's just like they've knocked them out in half an hour. Yeah. Without even going back to kind of research, or they make an assumption when you like it's a new thing or something like that, and you go, what? It's like the Games Biz article, right? And I've got a lot of respect for games, which I'm surprised to be honest, of all the publications, gamesindustry.biz, which I used to read when I was in the industry. Yes. I have a lot of respect for it. It's an industry facing publication. It's not, really for the consumers.
For the general public. Yes, you're absolutely right.
It's for the industry to keep you abreast of what's going on in the industry that you work in. And then for them to come out with an article that said, it looks like Stadia are rolling out these new Stadia specific features. Yeah. New features. And and of course loads of people were quick to jump on going, no, they've had these since, X months ago, 12 months ago, some from the start. It's like, it just, and that to me, I just, raised my eyes into the back of my head and just thinking, that's lazy. Yeah, absolutely. That is lazy. And I'm surprised at gamesindustry.biz. Yeah. But there are other publications which are worse at that kind of laziness. And not going back and plotting and really understanding the history of where we've come from in terms of Stadia, and all the points and all the pivot changes and the the announcements over the years and when they happened and all this kind of stuff, which I would have thought is just basic game journalism 101 if you're reporting on a subject.
Yeah. I mean, GameIndustry.biz reminds me, Clive and Pete, of Associated Press. That's how big they were. And before Stadia came out, like their information was solid. Whenever somebody wanted to get something out, you would go to GameIndustry.biz. And unfortunately, I think with the SG&E closure, Stadia made the misstep of releasing the letter to Kotaku first, because they didn't feel comfortable going to GameIndustry.biz because of the choppiness that they've been doing with Stadia related news that was really out of character for them. It seemed intentional. And that's why I go hard on certain publications than I do other ones, because I know their body of work. I've been doing this for a while, and I've been following some of these people for a decade and a half in some cases. And to see how they report on Stadia opposed to how they reported other things, even in the past when they were brand new, is very disappointing. Not for me because I know better, but for the unsuspecting gamer, the guy that we just introduced to the Stadia community today. Those are the people that we're thinking about on the back end of this. So, yeah, interesting stuff, interesting times, and it's only going to take public perception to push back. Say that fast 5 times. It's only going to take that to GameIndustry.biz to say, well, okay, I guess the gig is up. We got to give it up now. Okay, let's report on them and do our due diligence like we do with everybody else. So it's a shame.
Well, yeah, they don't have a choice. Like, they don't. I was like, because then you're starting to see that whole when they get accused of bias and not covering them, it'd be like, why? You're supposed to be a major gaming publication. So, and these are all of the sites that I used to look up to as a kid, like to go for gaming news. Like I went from reading Shonen Jump for gaming news and getting all my Yu-Gi-Oh cards because they had special editions that came out. And then I started getting into Kotaku, Game Industry Biz, all of IGN, Verge, all of them. And then now it's like, now when you have something like Stadia that's out of their, I guess you could say, like, realm of what they're used to covering, and they know that they'll get public pushback for covering it, they don't want to do it. But I'm like, why? I was like, do you just listen to whatever people try to tell you to do now, or are you going to do what you used to do before and just cover it regardless?
It's a bit, it's always a bit frustrating that they, you'd read an article. I think it was the Verge turn today, their turn today, where they, reading the article and you go, yeah, that's very good. Yep, correct. Well done. That's good. That's good. Okay, yeah, that's not too bad. And then you get to the last paragraph, and then there's just like some sort of, stupid Stadia meme joke, or not even a joke. Sometimes like an unnecessary statement of opinion, right? It's a statement of opinion rather. So 3/4 or maybe 1/10 of the article, absolutely fine, not opinion, all based on information they've been provided with, reporting the news as they should. And then you get to that last sort of paragraph or the last 2 lines, and they go, not sure if they're going to, however, my feeling is Stadia won't be around long. And it's just like, what? Why? You didn't have to do that. You really didn't have to do that. Yeah. Like the rest of the article was solid. Yeah. Based on facts, you'd been given information, you reported the information, and then you just put this kind of pointless thing, which people then read as fact because the rest of it is factually based. And then they're in that mind frame that they get to that end and they go, oh, apparently, according to Verge, Google's not going to be around.
I want to show everybody something real quick.
It's pointless, annoying.
And again, not to toot our own horn, and for full disclosure, this is our website, PNTS Network, where we write articles. But I'm here to tell you that I am not the biggest fan of GFN. I personally am very skeptical about this new tier. We're going to talk about it, and that's just me personally. It's no way to down anyone else's thoughts on it. I'm just telling you where I'm coming from. However, when you look at an article that I write on GFN, or I write on Luna or the Xbox Halo article, which I don't like Halo. I'm not a fan of Xbox. You wouldn't be the wiser. That's what Clive is talking about. Like when you're disseminating information, you can't treat it like gumbo. You can't say, well, here goes some shrimp and here goes some potatoes and just throw everything in there. Like disseminate facts first And then in a separate piece or something like that, give all your harebrained conjecture of what you think. Like, don't mix the two together, because when you throw that last paragraph in at the end, it makes it sound like that what you're saying is solid, and it's not. And you're confusing people. And it's going to have a long-lasting effect on you, because there are sharp people within the Stadia community that will point it out. I just had to throw that up there. If you notice any of our articles, you don't know where I fall from unless you're listening to my individual content. You don't know where I fall. My Xbox article, my GFN article, my Stadia article, they're all within the basis of the community and where they're coming from with their stuff, whether they like it or not. That's where I'm old school with it, and where Clive is like pointing to. I just had to bring that up, because we don't see any of that anymore. Everybody wants to throw in their own little potatoes and their shrimp and stuff and make everything like gumbo, and it shouldn't be that way. Just wanted to point that out. So, but let's talk about the business side again, guys. So there was a job interview that was put out in regards to Stadia looking for somebody with business experience in first party development. I did want to talk about that and get thoughts on that. Shout out to xCloud Gaming. He kind of covered this as well. Let me put this up here. So this is the job description right here. And it talks about Google is proud to be an equal opportunity workplace and things of that nature. It gives you the responsibilities of the position and so forth. But I can't remember where I saw that part about first party. Let me see if I can find it.
It's in there. It says preferred qualifications. Experience working at first party game publishers, specifically on business development or account management.
Yep. Here it goes. Yep, right here, right smack dab middle in the beginning and in my face. But let me make it bigger for the people in the back. So, preferred qualifications. This is strategic partner manager Stadia. And preferred qualifications: experience working at a first-party game publisher, specifically on business development or account management. And there's other qualifications as well. So I wanted to tap you first, Clive, on this again, because you're the man with the experience in this stuff. Because there's been a lot of buzz circling in the community that this could refer to Stadia trying to develop first-party games again. I don't know about that, but I wanted to get your thoughts. What are your thoughts on all this altogether?
My thoughts is that is not the case.
Yep.
And I'll tell you for why.
Mm-hmm.
Because the bulk of this job description is about something very specific.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the reason they want that qualification is they are looking for somebody who's worked at a major publisher.
Yep.
Almost like Microsoft or Sony on the publisher side, who has that experience, almost console platform experience, or worked for a massive, so basically really understands games. And the strategic reach and impact of games, less so a developer. So this is first-party game publishers. Yeah, they're looking for somebody with business development or account management, having those relationships, who knows the gaming industry really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
The crux of this role is what really excites me, given what we already know. And I went into, I didn't realize it was nearly 2-hour show on Monday, but until Rock pointed out to me.
Yeah.
But I went into it to detail. But the more I read this job description, the more and the more we're sort of hearing. Again, just a caveat: nobody knows. I'm just basing it on my understanding of the language that they use in here, and my understanding of the industry, and actions that we've seen already, specifically AT&T, and as I pointed out, what Phil Harrison said in February back then, specifically about looking to work with partners. And they made he makes a distinction, or there is a certain distinction when they're talking about developers and publishers, and they're talking about partners. And while there is a bit of a crossover, arguably, there is a key distinction. And when you look at this particular job description, strategic partner manager, what they are looking for here is somebody with 6 years experience in partner account management. So it's about having those relationships with key partners in the cloud, video game, technology, and or entertainment industry. Yeah. Ideally, somebody from a first party game publisher, so who really knows games. That's the key thing. Experiencing technology in emerging early stage products. It's recognizing this is what we're talking about, an early stage product here. Mm-hmm. And then it goes into great detail here about strategic partner managers. So this is talking about Google's strategic partner managers. So across Google, yep. Who have an opportunity to build long-lasting relationship with top partners. This is what Google refers to people or companies they work with. Companies like Samsung are partners, that they work with. That's how they describe it. So you would be working with the Google. So this is a job for Stadia, strategic partner manager, Stadia, but you would be working with the Google's global partnership team. So although you're working for Stadia, you're also part of Google's global partnership team. And that team provides meaningful solutions for helping publishers and developers grow their business through monetization solutions, to helping our long-term partners anticipate and navigate change in a way that delivers economic and reputational value. And it's about basically throughout. So there is an element of working with publishers and developers, but there's a lot of it is talking about working with, in conjunction with your other sort of partner, Google's partner management team, looking for strategic opportunities. We collaborate across Google, ensuring a coordinated approach when engaging with our most complex and strategic partners. Mm-hmm. So when they're talking about that, they're not talking about gaming partners in terms of publishers or developers. They're talking about other partners. And this, to me, sort of the AT&T situation is an example of that. Yep. That is a strategic partnership that's leveraging the tech. So it's just interesting that this job looks like it is specifically about finding those partnerships to help push effectively the Stadia tech and leverage that, as has been outlined. And whilst in isolation, this job, you might go, well, that's it then, isn't it? They're just going to, I hate the word, but I'll just use it for the benefit of the audience. They're just going to turn into a white label. Yeah, this is what this job's all about. That's it. Well, it is until you take in the context that there are other jobs specifically targeting developers and publishers. Yeah, roles which specifically target those at the same time. So you can't ignore those roles, which is the gist of my piece on Monday, is that there is a handful of roles, new roles, specifically aimed at building relationships with publishers or developers directly, whether it's on an engineering side, whether it's on, a financial side, a payments, the payment return revenue side, strategically building, working with publishers and developers, finding new games, all that kind of stuff. So exactly as I said, there are two clear paths that Phil Harrison laid out. One is we'll continue to bring games, working with publishers and developers to get their games to their players on this platform, and secondly, to leverage our tech and tools to other partners who are looking to explore, cloud gaming solutions. And this role in particular seems to me to be that. And where it crosses over into the sort of developer publisher side, I think is more likely the more obvious thing, like potentially, because it's about long-term relationships, like channels. So that could be that. But equally, it's more like the AT&T, or possibly someone like Samsung, who yesterday announced that they would be launching their cloud gaming thing for on Tizen, whatever their TV operating system. As yet, we don't know who is supplying that tech. Speculation is out there, but this is the sort of role I would imagine that would do that. And why would this be one of those roles? Is because if you look at the fact that this role is part of Google's global partnership team, we know that as part of the Google global partnership team, one of their biggest partners that they work with, both on a tech side, behind the scenes, and on a consumer side, is Samsung. They're working together with Samsung behind the scenes on some techie stuff. And they're working, I've seen loads of adverts by Google promoting the Samsung flip phone at the same time as the Pixel phones come out. Yep. So it is and these are Google adverts for the flip phone, ironically enough. So we know that Samsung are giving up their operating system on their watches and going to be using Wear OS on all their Samsung smartwatches. So we know, and I think they worked on the chip. There, I think there is some speculation they worked on the maybe they're right, but they worked on the Tensor chip behind the scenes, or somebody did. But we know that, and they mentioned, if it's not that, they did mention that they have this, they're deepening their relationship with Samsung across Google. This is. So that's the sort of strategic partnership that you have, that if you're working in the Google's global partnership team, you might want to kind of elbow your buddy next to you and you go, hey, do you think they'd be interested in this thing that we've got here? Is there an opportunity here? Since the door is open, we have this dialogue with them. Are there other areas that we can push? Because as I said before, the key strategic push for Alphabet Group is cloud, Google Cloud, and one of the key elements of that, which is also announced, is now gaming is seen as a really important part of that. There are like 4 key areas of growth for cloud, and they see gaming as one, not just Stadia, but other aspects of it. But it's those strategic partnerships that potentially could, they could find opportunities to say leverage the underlying Stadia tech. So this is why this job in particular excites me, because I just think it's about forging those relationships with, I always suggested that potentially leveraging the tech might be with a TV manufacturer.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it could be, I'm not saying, and here, look, I am not saying Samsung cloud gaming offering is powered by
Stadia.
Stadia, right? I'm not saying that, but it's as much chance as being powered by that as it has been powered by. Well, it's not going to be powered by. They could use Azure, but it's not going to be powered by the Xbox tech, because that streaming aspect's powered by a different company. But they could certainly use the Azure servers, arguably. They could use some company that Tencent owns or something like that. So there's lots of, potential. But if you were a betting man, Google is as good as anybody. Is certainly in the mix as one of the people who might be driving that be the people behind that technology. We don't know, as I say. I'm not saying it is, but there is, as much chance as anybody else.
Pete, let me ask you, based off of the very informative breakdown that Clive just provided. So let me ask you, because there's a lot of people that think that the partnerships that Clive spoke to show that Google just wants to give up on retail and they just want to license themselves off to everybody, right? And just tell everybody, leave $20 on the dresser. So let me ask you this. Do you think that these moves are great for Stadia retail, or do you think it's a bad sign for Stadia retail going into the future?
I think it's a great sign, and dude, I'm so tired of people saying it's a bad sign as if they completely understand what's going on.
Yep.
And it's like, and I'm reading the job listing myself right now. So reading through it, the fact that they mentioned first party, I think, and it, like I said, I know everybody's still reeling from SG&E, and it really
Yeah.
does suck. But I think that they only close that in the short term while they focus on getting everything else up, because it doesn't make sense to dump all that money straight into a first party game that,
Mm-hmm.
okay, cool, you have one first party game, but you have nothing else to draw anybody in,
Yeah.
and you have nothing. And then what if
Yeah.
everybody does decide to play it just because it's an exclusive? Then you're gonna start having server issues. You don't know if your infrastructure can handle it or anything like that. And as that's all I tell people on Twitter is I don't personally care about the games, as crazy as that sounds. I want it to work and be solid. If it doesn't work and it's not solid, I don't like it. That's why I don't like GFN, because sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's not at all consistent for me, which is why I've never bothered paying a subscription for it. xCloud is the same way. Maybe it's just where I'm located at. I don't know. Maybe it just doesn't like me. But neither of them work very well for me, at least not consistently. Which is why I've never really bothered getting too much into it. And it's not because I'm a Stadia fanboy and I just want to sit there and promote Stadia all the time and forget everybody else. No, I like all of them. And the fact that gaming is more accessible than ever should be a really good point. Um, so that it's good to see this. And in terms of retail experience and what's going to happen furthering Stadia's goals, I think this is actually a really good thing. And plus, they're also part of the responsibilities, it says, is setting strategies in conjunction with internal stakeholders based on research and understanding of the partner's financial, strategic priorities in business, industry, and competitive landscapes. So to me, this is also Google saying as a shout out to ensure the investors that, hey, we're still in this. We're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
We're just building on everything. So yeah, bottom line, I don't think this is a bad thing at all, and I do believe that at some point Google will be getting right back into first party. But as I said before, they need to focus on everything else first, and then once they get their feet on the ground, I promise you we will see a return back in first party once it grows more.
Yeah. I want to cover something real quick before I lose sight of it, because I think you hit something right on the head. What people don't realize, and Clive has familiarity with this, so Clive, cut me off at any time. What people don't realize is that exclusive games for a singular platform like a Stadia or Xbox or PlayStation, they're only a catalyst to bring you so you can buy the third party games. Because as the best exclusive game maker in our times right now has even told us, that only 4 out of 10 PlayStation games make money. But Sony will always support the talent because they know they need that talent that will bring you to their Fortnites, their Call of Duties, their Maddens, their FIFAs. So to what Peter just outlined, there was no point on spending 150 million, 300 million, 500 million, as people are guesstimating as for Halo Infinite. There's no point in spending that if you're not going to pivot to the games that really make the money. The games that keep the lights on are the Maddens, the FIFAs, and all the other stuff. Okay? So we got to keep that in mind. And Stadia, I think, was at a point to where they were looking at what they were plugging in to developing first-party titles, and they didn't even have third-party relationships sound. That's why over the course of 2 generations, even when they were having things going for them in the latter part of the second generation that they existed, Xbox lost $10 billion. You know what I mean? Because they didn't have the partnerships established in the first generation. They were just trying to block PlayStation from taking over the living room. So there's a lot of tangibles that people got to remember. And why my discussion yesterday where I was told on Twitter, well, I don't care about the business babble. Well, then you just don't care. Because these people aren't in it for charity. They're in it to make money. And there's a lot of money to be made with gaming. So you got to understand how this stuff works. But great discussion. Any other thoughts before we move on to the blog post that we had this week? Any other thoughts? Nope. Okay, cool. No. Cool beans. All right. Great discussion, guys. Let's move on to the next session. This topic 2, the new games blog. So if I can, let me pull them up. First and foremost, we got surprised today with next up on Stadia, get your fill of action with World War Z Aftermath and Fire Commander. It reads as follows. Sit down, strap in, and get ready for the played 2 action-packed games coming to Stadia store. World War Z Aftermath launching this winter, as well as Fire Commander arriving next year. Or as well as Fire Commander arriving next year. So I don't know if that means both of these games, or because winter can span from, it can cover into the next year as well. So I don't know when both of these games are coming out, but to hear that they're coming out nonetheless is great. Straight from the silver screen to all screens you own, World War Z Aftermath challenges Stadia players to turn the tide of a zombie apocalypse by fighting their way through hordes of undead up to 3 friends. When it launches this winter, interested in containing a different kind of catastrophe, Fire Commander delivers a stellar top-down strategy simulation, explosive infernos and emergency situations fire stations crews can face every day. Get all of the details of these 2 games below and stay tuned for additional information on special launch dates and Stadia store pricing. So while we talk about these games, I'll just let them play in the background. Start with you, Clive. What are your thoughts on these 2 games being dropped on us today? It was a big surprise.
Yeah, no, I think it's great, and I think this is how it's going to be.
Yeah,
whenever here's some games. And probably part of the reason they change, they're changing the cadence, which is the word they used for dropping blog posts. Drop a blog post when you've got something to say.
Yes.
And then people go, oh, that means, they're going fortnightly, as we say, every 2 weeks. That means they haven't got enough news. And that's like, no, that's not what they're saying. It's just there's a better way of letting us know what's coming. And this is exactly that. Why have a weekly date? And like I said to Rock, we've all become like Pavlovian dogs. Mm-hmm. And we start salivating on a Tuesday, and then we get angry when we don't get our chocky drop. So we need to. It's on us. Stadia have trained us damn Pavlovian dogs into this kind of salivating situation every Tuesday.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean there's less news. It means we're going to get things like this.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we've got something to tell you. Here you are. And then maybe every 2 weeks, just summarize everything. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And these, from what I've heard, World War Z is, a lot of people are very excited about it. So it's great to see that coming. And, it's by all means, it's a port. So it's already out, I believe, on other platforms.
Yep.
So maybe, given what we talked about, frames per second, they'll give it the attention that it needs. So that'd be interesting. And then you've got your Fire Commander, which is sort of a sort of slight, as I can see, a strategic type game to a certain degree, strategy type game. And those are, always very, very popular. And as you say, one looks like winter and one is unannounced 2022. Yeah. We say we don't know what is winter up to March, or do they genuinely mean by the end of December, or but the other one, yeah. So this Fire Commander is one of several games that are now delivering in 2022, which for a dead platform is pretty impressive.
Exactly.
So yeah, so I think it's great, and I'm fine with the way that they communicate this. To be honest, I'm really got an issue with it. Why I questioned, even on Monday, I questioned about the TWAS, just anecdotally, just like, is there a real point of it? Like only about 6,000 read it.
Yeah.
And there's 100,000 Reddit moaners in Stadia,
Yeah.
so it's just like it's maybe, maybe drop it on Reddit, which they do. Maybe drop it in Twitter, Discord, which they do now. And then every couple of weeks have a sort of, you use this as a collation of what the news is. So put out a tweet, and then just, rather than just having a regular, a weekly drop, just do a drop when you've got something to say, and then every 2 weeks a big summary. Well, that's my shopping now, so I'll hand over to Pete. 1 second.
So Pete, what are your thoughts on these games coming? World War Z, you excited? And Fire Commander, what are your thoughts?
Okay, so I have a few things to say with that. All right, so World War Z, I do have the original one on my PC. Yeah, the very first World War Z, and I love zombie killing just like, like virtually anybody else.
Anybody, yeah.
Like, that's the only reason I'll even play Call of Duty these days, is specifically for the campaign and zombies, and I'll like rarely ever even touch multiplayer. But it's nice seeing that come, and it's hilarious because I was just arguing with someone on Twitter talking about Stadia's not getting any of the newest games, and then here comes the announcement saying that World War Z Aftermath is coming. I was like, so what was that again?
Yeah.
So it's nice seeing that come. Also interested in Fire Commander because I do love those top-down style strategy games, and the fact that I don't know if anyone's caught on, but it is being published by Movie Games SA, who initially had expressed interest in putting their games on Stadia, and when they first expressed interest, it was with Drug Deal Simulator, and everybody was like, "Hey, get this on Stadia,"
Yeah,
blah blah
yeah.
blah. But I don't think Google's okay with that.
Yeah.
So it's I'm cool with that, but I don't.
Yeah, whatever.
Google
Yeah.
is.
I mean, what the hell do you think? What do you think Grand Theft Auto is? You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
I think the name within itself probably made them feel uncomfortable.
As I say, if you can't play Grand Theft Auto, just go to LA or go outside, and you'll just see Grand Theft Auto happening in real life every day. But yeah, it's nice seeing both of these games come, and it's a really pleasant surprise. And I am almost willing to bet, just like Kakarot, just like Batman, just like Kakarot, that as games start to come out now, they're going to start getting more and more and more graphical options.
I want to talk to you about that because you said something in the chat, and I caught it, brother, but we weren't on it yet. So you said something in the chat about Kakarot, and I'm gonna put it on the screen, has settings like Batman. Explain this to me, my friend. You never told me about this. Shame on you. No. Explain. So what's going on with Kakarot?
All right, so I decided to just throw the 60 on Kakarot because, like I said, I'm a DBZ nerd. So and there's no download, so I was just like, I could just play right away. Yeah. So I went ahead and bought it. Already passed my 2-hour mark and just don't care because I have no intention of refunding it. Game plays like butter. If you go into the graphical options, and shout out to Mr. Bayram Plays. I don't know if you're in the chat. I do interact with you on Twitter. He had originally pointed it out first that it has a few graphical options. So, for example, you can increase the shadow resolution, so you can turn the shadows up to max. You can turn VSync on.
Oh wow! Okay.
It has the most interesting thing. Oh yeah, that also has a anti-aliasing. So you can do the 3 standard options. The default I think is FXAA for anti-aliasing. The most interesting thing it has though is internal resolution. You can actually crank that up, which is like odd to me. And I was like, well, that's new.
Yeah.
And I cranked it up to 200 all the way, and that game looks gorgeous. There's zero pixelation, nothing. The latency is like gone. Like I'm just all around
Wow.
like fanboying over this game because like I seriously think Google's not saying anything, but I think this is their new
Yeah.
porting process. Like
Yeah.
things are just
Yep.
getting
At work.
better. Yeah.
Yep. Well, look, I mean, my message to Google is, and it looks like Clive is back, but my message to Google is when this stuff happens, I mean, I get it. And Clive can attest to this because he's always, I can just see Clive with his hands in his head like, no, don't overspeak this. And I get to where their concern is now that we have Kakarot with this feature set that everybody's going to expect every game like that, or they're going to go back to Far Cry 6. Well, is Far Cry 6 going to be ported through this? And no, it's going to be spot on here and there until it starts to grow. It's going to be a process, but it's still great to mention. Like, I would say something like, you're going to say, I would say you're going to start to see, slowly but surely, guys, you're going to start to see or new feature sets come to play. The first game on Stadia to go through that process. That again, if that is the case, is Dragon Ball Z.
Was it already out on other platforms?
Kakarot, yeah, Kakarot's been out.
Yeah, so this
Kakarot hasn't been out that long. Like I think it's barely like a year.
So I think this, and again, caveat, speculation, but feeding to this idea of meeting deadlines.
Yep.
Where games are, some games are day and date, and then we're disappointed because they're only at 30 frames per second and 4K, and we don't have a 60 frames per second option and stuff like that. Compared to games which come a little later, albeit a few weeks, albeit months. So on those ones, clearly, people have had to put in or have time to port the game, like outside of the pressures of having to deliver all the other games.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, but it would be interesting to see all the games that delivered slightly later, or that were worked on specifically. That what level, what fidelity they're at, and whether it is an example that given that little bit of extra time, you get more, more sort of the Stadia tech is pushed slightly more. Yeah. There's more chance to explore it if that's, from what Phil's saying, whether that's, on Kakarot, whether that's true, and whether that's just an example of that. Again, I don't know, I'm just speculating, but it's an interesting thing to think about. Would you be happy to wait an extra 2-3 weeks or an extra month?
Yeah.
Maybe an extra 6 weeks in the early stages, which we still are at really after 2 years.
We are.
So that they've got time to really give the Stadia port some more attention. If that is what the problem is in terms of, the pressure of getting games out day and date, and therefore taking the slightly easier option of locking it at, or making certain creative decisions, locking things at 30 frames per second or whatever it is, or with a bit more time, having the opportunity and the time to give it the attention it needs and to deliver a game with a greater number of options. I don't know. Speculation.
I agree, and I've had to take a chill pill as it relates to my expectations on that. I remember when Cyberpunk was out there, and I was one of those banging the drum. You gotta get this game day and date and whatever. And they made the pressure. Well, it's because they work with a fantastic group, Q-Lock, in order to meet that demand, and therefore it was day and date, and it worked out in their favor. Where them being day and date with that heavily anticipated game, and really the only fathomable place for people to play it was Stadia, because it didn't play well on 8th
circumstance. Circumstance, I think, played in all the delays that they had.
Exactly.
I think it meant that they had an opportunity to effectively catch up.
Yep.
and give it the time that it deserved. They were probably already ahead of the curve on the Stadia port.
Yeah.
Given the delays of the polishing that was going on the rest of the main game, so maybe they'd caught up, which is what the speculation was at the time, and it just created a wonderful opportunity. Not only did they be able to get out a great version of the game, but they get it out day and date. The biggest game, people were saying the biggest game of the decade. It was so and that I would put your hand up. I would say that maybe that was fortunate.
Mm-hmm.
That outcome for Stadia, because I don't think they initially anticipated it to be necessarily day and date. It was off and on all along. I don't think they could commit, and then fortunately, CD Projekt Red kept putting the date back of the main game, and I think opportune meant there was an aligning of the planets, as it were. So it worked out quite well. Perhaps again,
Q-Lock involved too.
Yeah, Q-Lock, exactly.
Yeah, so it was a great circumstance. However, it doesn't always work that way, right, guys? Because look at Outriders. You know what I mean? Outriders just got.
But that was a day and date.
Yeah, and
that's what I'm saying.
So one. Exactly.
Yeah. So maybe the game in general didn't have the polish it needed, let alone the Stadia port.
Exactly. So and Outriders, who knows what the state of it is now? Now I saw a bunch of people on my friends list online last night when I tried to play it, and I don't think they were necessarily playing Outriders. They were out playing different things, but the game probably would have fared a lot better had it waited and had it come to Stadia with it being a little bit more polished, especially now, right? Where there's no games on Stadia. Had Outriders been later in the year and it came later in the year, probably. So it's not always. So I've learned, guys, to be a little bit more patient with these games and not expect every single one to be day and date, just as long as I know that it's coming. I know that's a big, point of contention is knowing that it's coming. But as long as I know that it's coming or not, I'm fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I 100% get that frustration. Mm-hmm. I'm not of the thing that people make buying decisions. It's like, well, yeah, it's like if you've got the luxury, the fact that you own a PlayStation 5, an Xbox Series X, a gaming PC, and you've got the luxury of making that consumer choice, and you're going to make that choice because Stadia haven't announced, Resident Evil Village, and so you like pre-ordering games. That tiny niche of people that have that massive option.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's that's sort of valid necessarily, but I absolutely 100% get the frustration when big games are announced and there's no indication that, Stadia is involved, because it creates that vacuum, and, nature abhors a vacuum, and people are pretty willing to fill it full of shizzle pretty quickly. So, and sometimes the game doesn't come out on Stadia, and sometimes it does come out on Stadia later, and that is terribly frustrating, and no one can defend that. I can't, as a person who's meant to be so optimistic about Stadia, I can't defend that. Really. I can provide maybe, I can speculate about reasons why that may be the case, but that is not me defending it. It's me perhaps sort of trying to provide some context, but I cannot defend or support the idea that somehow, it's a good thing that Stadia don't announce games earlier. But for whatever reason, if they could, what frustrates me is if they could, they would. They're not playing some sort of silly game. That wouldn't make any sense.
It doesn't.
So the most obvious conclusion is they're not in a position, either legally, contractually, or where they are in the development stage of that game, to make that commitment public. I deal in media contracts, and so I have the press office on me on a regular basis going, we'd like to announce this thing. Is the contract signed? and I'm the one that says, no,
Yep.
I haven't done it yet. I haven't done it yet. Or I'm waiting on them to return it to me. I'll let you know. Oh, good. Can you let us know? Yeah, I'll let you know. I'll let you know when I'm ready to tell you. And then I'll constantly, is it signed? Can we announce it? We'd like to announce it next week. And well, yeah, I'm sorry. Well, the contract's not done yet. And that's the reality of business. You don't necessarily want to make grand announcements just because the deal's going to get done, and when I'm doing these deals, they're going to get done. But still, you don't want to commit until the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. And that's, something I deal with every day. And I have to deal with the press office and tell them, no, you can't make an announcement yet because I haven't signed the contract. I haven't finished negotiating it. It'll get done, but when just not quite there in a position where we're comfortable to make an official announcement. So that's often the reason why these things, don't happen. And absolutely, as I said before, 100%, it is so frustrating. And I get why it grinds people's gears and people get all antsy about it and will rant about it on Reddit and Twitter and whatever. And I 100%, I get it. I get it.
Well, I get it too, Pete, because I was one that thought erroneously that what Stadia was going to do was, because I had listened to the Kotakus, I had listened to the IGNs. I never knew in a million years that these guys would be so unfactually tethered, to the reality of what this platform was doing. The Eurogamer interviews that shout out to Project Storm that he helped bring resurface and get people looking at again. I never thought in a million years that they wouldn't pivot from those facts. So I just took what they were saying as gospel, and I believe that Stadia was coming out to immediately battle PlayStation and Xbox. So I thought that we'd be seeing games day and day. And it wasn't until I got later in 2020 that it helped me realize, okay, this is not what this platform is trying to do, because when you look at articles like NASDAQ or whatever, it just doesn't make any sense for them to try to take such a leap. They'd be like Scrappy Doo. Let me at him. Meanwhile, all you got to do is step on Scrappy Doo and it's over. The ceiling for cloud gaming is just too low right now for them to do that. So my question to you, Pete, is, do you think that Stadia still should do more pronouncing things like this, like what you announced with Kakarot or whatever? I mean, or do you think it won't make a big difference? Do you think the pace that they're going at is good, or are there some things that you would definitely think that they need to improve upon on the communication side when it comes to stuff like this?
So personally, I would love for them to communicate it more, and I'm sure the community at large will love it more, but I still don't really see a point in them mentioning things like that, because time and time and time again, I see people just saying, we just want the games, we just want the games, we don't care about the settings, we don't care about the features and whatever. And then at that point, I'm just like, okay, whatever. I was like, I guess that doesn't matter to you. I was like, to me, it does, because if I can't get into those options to enjoy a game the way I wanted to enjoy it, I'm immediately losing interest in the game regardless. Yes, it would probably be good for Stadia to communicate it, only because people have been straight begging to be in the know about every single thing, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I personally just don't get why everybody is in such a like mood to learn every single thing going on, because you're not going to, no matter how much you crave it. And as I keep saying every week on every show, Google said they're keeping a lot of these major improvements locked down. They don't care. They're not going to bring it up, period. Because in my head, I'm either thinking one, they're staying quiet to keep ahead of the competition, and two, even if it doesn't seem like they're keeping ahead, they're keeping ahead. Two, I totally lost track. I just don't see them mentioning it making an actual difference overall in whether or not people are going to have an interest in the platform, because
Yeah.
they don't have the games that people want.
It's the
regardless.
games that it's the games that all along. It's the games people are interested in. Just, is this game on it? Is that game on it? Is this game coming to it? That's all they care about. Not
Yeah.
like, oh, apparently you can do this and you apparently do that. Like, or we've improved the stream quality slightly. Like, there's a small section of people who are are interested in that, and we're probably account in that. But generally, yeah, that's sort of down in the weeds detail. And if you want to get down in the weeds, you can go and find that information. I'm sure, but it's a sort of information that Stadia have made very clear. They're just going to do it and then let us know when it's done. And that, I'm quite happy with that.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, here's this thing we've just done.
Yeah.
Not like, we're going to do this. It's going to be great. It's going to be huge. It's going to be bigly. And then it comes and everybody's like, is that it?
Well, that goes back to that goes back to my them doing the switching their cadence on a blog post, because they even said, okay, hey, we're going to start doing more blog or like the development post. We're going to start having more information. We're going to start making sure that the save points are up and stuff like that. And it's like people immediately took it as such a bad thing, even when they straight up said, hey, we're going to be communicating more. But it's like people didn't see that. They just said them slowing down on the blog post. But it's like they don't realize that Google does lurk and watch and monitor, because just like anyone else does, because people for a while were saying, oh, this is it. Even in the comments on the blog post, they were saying, oh, this is it. They're all like, we're expecting more, blah, blah, blah. Well, this move allows them to fit that perfectly. And it's like people are throwing an immediate fit over it. And I'm almost positive now that doing this, yes, they'll be able to fit a lot more of what's going on by slowing the pace that they throw the blog post, because you don't know if they have information, they're just not allowed to say it right now. So then they'll just throw something out that week just to throw it, but they can't say what they want to say.
It's like us trying to put our week, those that us that Pete, you're actually right. It's like those have put these regular shows out. That there has been the odd week, although it's never actually come out this way. But there's been the odd week when I thought, well, there's not very few actually. Ironically enough, in fact, maybe one or two tops where I've just thought there's not a lot, and there's not a lot for me to go on for a show. But then usually in those scenarios, something kicks off in the community that's worth addressing, and it's probably not as big as it should be, but has somehow become big and is worth talking about because of that, and it fills that gap. That's very rare, actually. Ironically, that happens. But equally, I think Pete, you're right. It's like rather than sort of feel we need to have something to fill this Tuesday at 9 p.m. Pacific time, 5 p.m. UK time, we need to have this stuff already within a day of them saying we're just going to change the way that we communicate and let you have the news. It's not like, as somebody, I think it was Original Penguin did a silly drawing, an infographic handwritten drawing where he's sort of saying, with two glasses of water feeding into another glass, just at a slightly different interval.
Oh, yeah, I think that was Vivi. Yeah,
that was Vivi. That was Vivi.
Yeah. It was like, that was it, Vivi.
I love that.
It was
drawing.
funny,
yeah.
And it's exactly the amount of news isn't changing. Just the form and how it's delivered is changing. Yeah, and already, as I say, what they said, we're not doing it. Yesterday they said we're not doing a TWAS, and then later there was some news. They decided to focus on reorganize or put in on the Stadia store, you can organize in the sections that highlight the Stadia specific features, and then they publish a post saying, wow, you know, in a way, and that was them saying, you know, we're not like any other platform. Yeah.
Exactly.
Most of the other platforms are basically just, well, you know, I say we're talking about GFN and Xbox is Xbox in the cloud. xCloud is literally an Xbox, right? So yeah, exactly. That's what you're getting. GFN is literally a gaming PC.
It's a glorified remote PC. That's all I'm going to say
exactly
on
what
that
it is.
matter.
So there are no real unique, you know, the Xbox game that you get is effectively the same game that you get for your Xbox Series X. So your xCloud game is the same version, effectively, right? So they can't do necessarily, and correct me if I'm wrong out there, audience, they can't do anything specific for that xCloud version of the game that sets it apart from the standard Xbox Series X version of the game. They can't put in a special feature. Yeah. Or they certainly haven't done, or it wouldn't make no sense for them to do it at the moment, because xCloud is just meant to be a complementary way to play the exact same game that you're playing on the Xbox Series X. Stadia is a platform, you know, a cloud-specific platform built with its own specific features that are unique to cloud and unique to Stadia. And in a way, I think, although it may not feel like as impactful as the announcement that GFN made about, oh, we're upping the, you know, we're adding 3080 cards to our virtual PCs. Brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. If you're into GFN, great news. But I think in a way it was Stadia saying, you know, I think you don't forget, there are these loads of unique features. Well, loads. You know, there are a few unique features that are Stadia only experiences. So you can play the games on other platforms, but you don't get Stream Connect, which is an absolute awesome feature on you know, team playing games, you know. And so I just thought it was interesting that they focused on that to sort of, in a way, it's sort of say, you know, shouting out about your unique selling points, you know, the differential. What makes Stadia different from all the other platforms? And it's these features. So I thought it was quite interesting. So it's just so quickly summarize. So from saying they're not going to, you know, they're now going to go to sort of delivering a TWAS every, you know, fortnight. We had that blog post, but with all these games and the new categorization, we've had 2 new game announcements. Plus, they came out today to confirm that demos are a thing going forward. So Grace posted in the Discord, one of the channels out there now choosing to use, that the free demo for Hello Engineer, which Gem came across, and everybody's reporting now. So The Verge and 9 to 5, and many of them are quoting Gem, which is quite cool. So there's a 30-minute trial of Hello Engineer, a free demo to see if you like the game. Grace from Google's come out now and said, yep, happy to confirm we are testing free timed game trials on Stadia over the next couple of months, starting with Hello Engineer. And in the coming weeks, we'll be enabling this experiment for select titles. This is a feature or an aspect or a marketing angle that many people in the community have been saying, you know what they ought to do? Free demos out, trials, stuff like that. Get people onto the platform and going, oh, actually, this thing actually works. Stadia is its best advert for itself.
Yep.
Playing the games on Stadia is the best advert for itself. And so many people have said this is what they need to do. And this is massive news. So this is, to me, this is quite significant news. And so within a day of them saying we're moving to a slightly different cadence of reporting, communicating with you, we've had a bunch of stuff within 24 hours.
Yeah.
So that completely undermines all the people go, well, that's it. It's probably them winding down.
Exactly. Yeah. We're only going to get one
People who
news
put these
article
probably
about an
winding
obscure
down, I
feature.
think,
Yeah.
yeah, are trying to wind me up. I think
Yeah.
that's what it is. It's
I
like
think
so dumb.
I think it's a smarter move, Clive, because think about it like this. You got T-bone steak, right? And you got two different outlets that want to serve the T-bone steak. You got one outlet that wants to do it in a fast food fashion. They just want to chop it up real quick, put it in the pita bread, and you come and get it. You know, you pay for it, you get out of here, you're on your go. And they got 70 different sandwiches of T-bone steak that they're going to chop up for you and put in 80 different styles of bread. Then you got another outlet that wants to take that T-bone steak, leave it in one piece, give you some peas and carrots, and give you like a 4-course meal or whatever. You know, so and I like in both of those places. The latter is like Stadia, where GFN is more like the pita place that just wants to chop it up, give it to you, upload the game, boom, just go ahead. There's no special feature set. It's just the PC game in the cloud. Stadia's taking a little bit more time with it. They feel like that they're giving you a more quality experience when ultimately all of their feature sets and everything that they have to offer are experienced. So they're taking a little bit more time with it. So the reason why I brought up that comparison is because if you're trying to do something in the latter, it doesn't make sense really to have a blog post every week. It serves GFN because GFN, they got 1,000 games and they're getting 30 games a week or whatever. So of course it makes sense for what they're doing, where the amenities that come with Stadia, there's different things that you can do. Maybe you don't have a blog post this Thursday, but you know how we got all googly-eyed over when they were talking about the features and the pipeline and stuff like that. So it's just a matter of them better understanding what is going to work better with their consumer base and not just trying to do something because everybody else is doing it. And like you said, we got a whole bunch of information this week without it having to be under some conveyor belt fashion that really doesn't serve them. So I think it was a good idea. And we're getting stuff like this. I think it's a good way to just, you know, we'll give you information as it comes. And they said we're going to find out new ways to try to engage with you over the course of time in between those gaps. So smart move to me. That being said, I think there was another blog that I don't want to ignore, definitely. And that was the features blog. So let's kind of talk about that. Let me show you something. So it says here, 20 plus games now powered by Stadia platform, features that change the way that you play. And it reads like this: we're excited to celebrate that more than 20 games available on the Stadia store have integrated Stadia platform features like State Share, Stream Connect, Crowd Play, and Crowd Choice, powered by cloud gaming technology. Developers have taken advantage of these features to change the way that you play, share, and experience your favorite games on Stadia. Stadia's 4 platform features are accessible to all players, whether you're new to Stadia or you want to try crowd play in games like Super Bomberman or online, and Crata if you're a competitive player looking to dominate with your squad in Division 2 using Stream Connect. With a combined total of 25 plus feature integrations across more than 20 games, there's no shortage of creativity, experimentation, and fun you can have with Stadia. And now you can explore all of the games that support each feature with new Stadia store categories for State Share, Stream Connect, Crowd Play, and Crowd Choice. Lastly, today we're excited to reveal how id Software has added State Share to all new Horde mode and Doom Eternal, as well as Crow Team adding Crowd Play to Serious Sam 4. Both integrations are available now to explore and play. I'll start with Pete on this one. Pete, what are your thoughts on this integration that they're utilizing, that they're focusing on with their games? It's like Clive perfectly illustrated for us. The thing with Stadia is you can experience games in a way that you can't elsewhere. And the thing that helps bring that product placement or that selling point over is their features. What do you think in particular of this renewed focus? Well, I don't want to say renewed, but what do you think about this focus? I'm going to show you why it's not renewed. But what do you think about this focus? And what do you think about Doom Eternal now having state share?
So I since I saw this blog post, I haven't played Doom Eternal in a while. But I saw this blog post and now I have the itch to get back into it because I want to start playing the Horde mode, and I also have to finish the DLC. I never finished it.
Yep.
So it's nice seeing Stadia really focusing back on this. Also my food is coming soon, so if I disappear soon, I'm sorry. But yeah, so it's nice seeing Stadia focusing on this, and now, and I'm not trying to brag, but this is how I start seeing the steps that I imagine them playing out according to my logic, which probably isn't going to make a lot of sense to people, is playing out exactly how I think they're going to play it out. They're going ahead now that it seems like they have their infrastructure solid. Now you go to step 2, you start focusing on your platform exclusive features, all of the features that make Stadia stand apart from everyone else. Because I don't see PS5 or Xbox Series X or PC or Switch having any of the features that Stadia has. I don't see them having Stream Connect. I don't see them having, okay, maybe crowd choice is with Twitch, whatever. So I don't see anyone else having any of these features. You have PS5 that lets you basically, it's kind of like Stream Connect, but it doesn't let you actually it's not real time thing. It just basically shares the other person's screen at whatever they're doing at that time, but it's not actually Stream Connect. Not one person has state share. And the fact that now you have a game like Doom Eternal that a lot of people like to show off how many demons they killed so fast or all the different ways they do it, blah, blah, blah. State share is the perfect implementation of that. And now that they're showcasing all of these games that have it, just like Serious Sam 4 just got a crowd play. That's also really nice to have. And like I said, now they're showcasing that, hey, we have all of these games that have these features. Now we can start showing it off and people can really start taking advantage of it, because I've also seen that on Twitter where people say that I don't use Stadia for these features. Okay, that's cool. I do. That's why I like Stadia and why I play it as much as I do, because it has features that my PC can't do. I play on my PC all the time. I get it. I also play on Stadia, and more often than not, I'll choose Stadia over my PC just because it's more interesting to me. I mean, yeah, I could play at a higher fidelity on my PC. Yeah, I have a 144 hertz monitor. Yeah, I can play at 144 frames, but I don't really care because it just seems stale to me. I play games for features and things that attract me. I don't play them just because it has a certain amount of games on it or has the games that I want to play. That's again why I don't really care for GFN, because GFN doesn't have anything different from what my PC can already do. The only difference is I'm not paying a ridiculous amount to look at pretty colors.
Yeah.
I could just do that on my PC and play how I want because I can already adjust all the settings through my GPU, so why bother?
Yeah. Yep. I think being a standalone platform with your own feature set, like right now, you're rolling it out and you're like, oh, it's not really, that important. But the more you integrate them, the more important they'll be. Clive, what do you think about like Doom Eternal getting these features? How big is it for Stadia to really pivot and ensure more and more games have Stadia features in them?
Well, I think, so you both kind of nailed it. This is about Stadia shouting about their exclusive features. This is, in an ever increasing market where there is competitive choice. Focus on you focus on your strengths and let other people worry about focusing on their strengths. And it's not about necessarily competing with them in their area of expertise or whatever it is. It's about going, well, wait a minute, we'll play the game that we want to play. I don't, like as a football team, you don't necessarily try to match the other team. You could have confidence in your own sort of strategy. And I think Stadia is unique as a cloud gaming platform. It is a platform built in the cloud specifically for gaming, whereas the others are virtual versions of existing real life things. So like a virtual PC or a virtual Xbox Series X. There isn't a physical Stadia that people own. This is a platform, and they describe it as a platform, and they also a console-like platform in the cloud. That's their words, right? Yep. Console-like platform in the clouds. And with like any platform, it allows you therefore to put in unique features. And this has got a rumble or whatever it is, whatever the older consoles had that made them, unique, a haptic response thing, for the PlayStation 5, unique features to them that helps set them apart potentially in one particular area than other consoles. And this is what Stadia are doing. So it's great that they're focusing on these, right? But then the accusation should be, they're just resting on their laurels and they're not offering us anything new. Well, that argument is undermined by the fact that not only do we already have these 20 plus games, 2 of them that have these unique, powered by the Stadia platform features, 2 of them are brand new features brought to existing games. So, i.e., they're continuing to move forward, not only hopefully with new games that arrive on the platform, but going back to some existing games and adding those features. And one of those is one of the biggest games on the platform, Doom Eternal. It's one of the flagship titles in its sort of first 12 months. Doom Eternal one, and to a certain degree Series Sam 4, because it had certain aspects which they shouted about, was sort of almost unique to Stadia, even if it didn't play quite as well as people expected. But it's interesting that these 2 games have added these features months after they've been released. So it suggests that Stadia are now pushing, hopefully, future games to incorporate the features where they're relevant, where they make sense, but also on a few, key titles retrospectively bringing them. I mean, Doom Eternal from id, owned by Bethesda, owned by Microsoft, going back to a game that's nearly, is that more than 12 months old?
Yeah.
12 months old on Stadia. Going back and not just doing a DLC which they're doing for all the platforms, but in this DLC, which they're doing for all the other platforms, adding Stadia unique features.
Yes.
To me, that is very enlightening and very interesting in a very in the fact that it's a very positive thing. It's to me, there's a certain irony that this is a Microsoft-owned company that have gone back to a game which is 12 months old, albeit bringing out new DLC, but bringing out DLC that on this platform has unique features which are not available on its mothership's platform. The Xbox Series X.
Yeah.
I just think that's interesting. That's driven by the developers. Without regard to who they're owned by, that's pushed by the relationship they had with Stadia and the developers have with Stadia, and they have a big this is one of the flagship titles. It's a title that the Doom Eternal Doom 2016 was a title that Stadia used, I think, to sort of sell the concept behind closed doors to the industry, because it demonstrated how the concerns about playing, games like Doom Doom 2016 was real fast response twitchy game. It's never going to work in the cloud. They specifically worked with id Software on proving that technology works, as a sort of a showcase behind the scenes to really demonstrate Stadia. So we know they have this relationship, even though, they're now owned by Microsoft. So I just think it's really, really interesting, and I think it's a good thing, And I could see people saying, "Oh, they just got no news to report, and they're just reporting all these old games that got these features." What's really interesting to me is the introduction of these features on games where they didn't exist before, on new games, like on going back to Doom Eternal and Serious Sam 4 and adding these features, and then now shouting about it. So I think it's really interesting and really cool, and I think it may be a strategy going forward where they push to get these features added. I heard the developers of Killer Queen Black, ironically enough, they said they weren't aware of the features.
Oh wow!
But they're going to go back and have a look.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they said that they were going to be adding crowd play.
Yes,
that'll be awesome. Yeah.
So that's quite interesting. So maybe we'll see some more of the existing games have this, and also games more pressure to put on developers and publishers to add unique features to make it uniquely Stadia.
Yep.
So yeah, exciting.
Absolutely. I just want to show a couple things before we transition out. First and foremost, Clive brought it up, my spiritual advisor, so I must double down on what he said. This is a quote from I think Marty Stratton is his name, from id Software. And this is well after Microsoft and Xbox had bought them out, and they're now part of the Xbox family. And this is during the whole hoopla after SG&E, March 18th, as a matter of fact, where Stratton put this out, where people like, Stadia's going to die, it's dead, who's going to get the car, who's going to get the socks, you know what I mean? But while everybody was talking this craziness, Stratton of id Software, now owned by Microsoft at the time, says this: "As for Stadia, I am convinced that we're still only scratching the surface of the future of video games. For me, streaming will be a fundamental method of distributing titles in the coming years. New technologies, it always takes some time before they can be fully established, but there is nothing in what Stadia or xCloud are doing that will prevent them from becoming a concrete reality sooner or later." I also want to pivot to the infamous MM2K introduced the infamous Input Magazine article with Catherine Hassao on state sharing the future of the platform. This article came out, oddly, February 1st. What happened February 1st? That's when they shut down SG&E. We tried to tell people, pay close attention to this, because this happened. This dropped, and a coordinated job drop for YouTube that talked about Stadia as well, that countered the whole narrative that Stadia was winding down altogether, opposed to them pivoting. And all throughout this interview, she is asked about what is Stadia's focus? And this interview happened before SG&E closed down, but it was released the day that it occurred. There's no talk about, our first party games or any of that stuff. Everything is about their features. Everything is about their features. Okay? Now, with that being said, there is a lot of stuff in here that if we paid attention to, like how our good brother Project Storm, how he was digging in the crates and bringing out articles, and people like, oh my gosh, I'm seeing that coming to realization. They said that months ago. The same thing applies here. You guys got to read this stuff to better understand what's going on, and you can just tick off, literally, like Clive said during the show, you can literally tick off one by one everything that was said at the beginning of the year and everything that they're actually doing. So this isn't last minute, last signs of life, oh, we're just going to try this all of a sudden. No, this is stuff that they told us about earlier that we just overlooked. But they're doing it one by one. So interesting stuff. And I love to see it. So great stuff. And yes, the feature sets are important. We want to see them in more and more games, and it looks like they're deploying what they said February 1st that they would do. All right. With that said, we got Aminor in the chat. He says, Stadia's done for. Hey, Aminor, we try to fight the good fight, but so many people are following your words, and you're just joking, but they're following your words, Aminor, and you know, hey, what can you say? But with that said, but we know the facts. The facts are the facts. With that said, I think that's it for today's show, unless anybody else had anything else that they wanted to cover.
I do have to do one thing.
Yes, sir.
So Spartadian shout out. I don't know.
Oh yeah! Oh my God! How did I forget that? I'm sorry, Spartadian.
Man. All right.
I know, man.
So Spartadian, thank you for donating.
Thank you, Spartadian. I'm sorry, brother. I am so sorry.
Your message was shout out to Twisted Barber for the quality host and awesome peeps chilling in the chat. We appreciate you because this man MM2K want to skip right past it.
That's why I got people. That's why I have people have to keep me in check. That's why I just say my little babble and I shut up and because I'll forget. But thank you, no Spartadian. I saw that and I wanted to get into it and I wanted to put it up in a special way, but it wouldn't show up on the screen. So, but thank you so much for that super chat, Spartanian. Thank you so much. I think that's it. We'll start with our guest, our special guest at that, Clive. Clive, can you let the good people know where they can find you at, my friend?
Yep. I will, of course, be back. I'm just having a check. I'm not on anybody else's show, am I?
I know. Is anybody else taking up
the
your
next
time?
few days? No, definitely. Okay, I'll be back on my own show, Stadia Monday Night Chat, 10 p.m. every Monday, 10 p.m. UK time every Monday. Again, it's going to be another week with a lot to talk about. And of course, between now and then even, pro games. Still yet to be announced.
Yes, that is true.
Unless they make it like a Christmas day and just drop them on the 1st November.
Hey,
which would be kind of fun. But there you go.
Give another shout out to our good friend Aminor. He dropped a $10 sticker. He says, "Great show. We miss you, Aminor." I was really starting to get concerned about you. When I saw you over on Clive's show, I was happy to see you with my brother, but I was like, "Where's Aminor at?" Pestering our chat, you know. But shout out to Aminor. With the
so everybody don't forget the pro games still to be announced.
It's like, that's gonna be something, man.
You could have three. Sorry,
no. Go ahead.
About three days of news.
Yes.
Following the announcement that they're going to, fortnightly twas.
Exactly.
For the people, and the people asking.
Further undermining this idea that means there's less news. We could potentially have three news days in a row.
Predictions, let's do this because Bibbidi put it in the chat. Can we do it real quick? Who wants to do predictions? Anybody want to predict what the next Stadia Pro games are going to be?
There's nothing that jumps out at me. I've no idea. So I'm gonna
Me neither.
I'll be wrong.
I don't really have any predictions right now. I mean, I'd be damned if Batman came, which would be kind of cool. But other than that, I don't have any real actual predictions for what might be pro games, even though I'm always looking forward to it. And for the people that are going around asking, hey, where are the November pro games? It's not November yet. Yeah. So did you
see
wait.
that I think it was on the most recent blog post. It's just so typical. Hey, look, here's some lovely gifts for you. Here's some 2 new games.
Yep.
And then the first comment, is like, where are the pro games for November?
No, that's what I'm responding to. Yeah, I was like, I saw that. I was like, it's not November. I was like,
it's like, oh my God, not like thanks for the gift.
Like thanks for the new games. Thanks for communication. No, where are the pro games?
Mom,
man,
where's my cookie? But I've got you this nice cake. I want a cookie. It's just like
you got the wrong flavor.
Wired spy. I'm calling you out, man. Where are
man.
It's already 2 days before November. Where are the pro games? It's not. You're right. It's not November. I nearly wanted to, because you can't respond to going,
Yeah.
They're in November. That's where they are. You know what I mean? Jesus, talk about entitlement.
I think we
Bless
met
him.
the world's first time traveler.
Yeah.
I see some
Where
good stuff
are they?
out here. I see Falconeer. I see Mafia 1 and 2. Someone said it would be great if it would be cool if we got Batman. I will see, this is my thing about Batman, and I know we got to close out.
It won't be
I
Batman.
don't. Yeah, see, AT&T. That's an exclusive deal for them. They're trying to use that to drive people to their service. It kind of defeats the purpose if it's available everywhere else. You know what I'm saying, via the cloud. Yeah. That's just my thought. So I can
see it coming in when that in 6 months.
Yes,
and now available to buy on Stadia, since they've done all the hard work, arguably, presumably in terms of the port. That would make sense. So I could see that happening, but although it would be incredible if it happened. It's not going to happen, but it would be.
Yeah, it would be incredible. No, I mean, that is right. They're both right. Yep. Our good friend Peter Cottontail, let the good people know where they can find you, my good friend.
All right, man. So on Twitter, you guys know where to find me. At foremost_GG on Twitter. I'm there all the time. My YouTube channel is really small, so I don't have a custom handle yet. So please feel free to go to the pntsnetwork.com site. My YouTube channel is listed there. When I have more time, I will definitely be getting content up. But as for now, that's also an additional place where you can find me at. Once things slow down and I'm resettled again, I will definitely be throwing up content from Stadia, in general, gaming news, wherever I'm deciding to play at. So yeah, as of right now, that's where you guys can find me.
Awesome stuff. Thank you so much. All right, you know where you can find me. You can find me here on Stadia Dosage. You can also find me on MM2K Videos, where we're going to be airing an episode. As things stand right now, we're going to be airing a special episode. Well, it's special because we ain't done it in a damn while. An episode of The Commission. And you're going to want to tune in because we have a cloud gaming panel, but we talk all things gaming. And we're going to be talking about this GFN thing. So we're going to talk about it in the after show too, but it's going to be a contentious debate about this GFN thing. You will see the return of Project Storm. Shout out to Project Storm. He couldn't make it today because of the time that we're airing, but you'll definitely see him tomorrow on that show if things continue if everybody don't flake out because they're worried about me and Storm debating this out about GFN tomorrow. Tune into MM2K Videos, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's a little bit past Cloud's bedtime. Maybe you can catch it on VOD. But with that said, thank you all so much for coming through. Appreciate and love all of y'all. And until next time, have a wonderful gaming day. Peace.